You got Hakeem Olajuwon, you got Shaq, you got MJ, you got Magic, you got Kobe, you got LeBron. The Oscar Robinsons of the world. We can go back for Larry Bird. The list goes on and on. Dirk Nowitzki up until Steph Curry arrived. I consider him probably the greatest shooter since Larry Bird. I give him that kind of love. At 7 feet with an unblockable J, he's something special. He's got.
Dirk Nowitzki just destroyed LeBron James. And this time, it wasn't on a basketball court. He looked straight at LeBron's entire legacy: the rings, the records, the brand deals, the documentaries, the carefully engineered narrative, and said something that no Hall of Famer has ever had the guts to say out loud. Stop pretending you're the GOAT. Now, if those words came from some random analyst with an agenda, you scroll past it. You've heard the hot take 1,000 times. You move on. But these words didn't come from a talking head. They didn't come from a bitter rival. They didn't come from someone with a contract to protect or a brand to manage. They came from Dirk Nowitzki, the man who beat LeBron James in the finals, the man who played through a torn finger while LeBron went quiet in the fourth quarter, the man who had everything to lose and still showed up every single night, while the so-called GOAT disappeared on the biggest stage of his career. When a man like that speaks, you don't scroll, you stop, you rewind, you listen to every word. Because this isn't a take, this is a verdict.
He draws the play up, he's like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And he draws the play up, yeah, JR, you get right here and get the shot. Bron was like, absolutely not. Sorry, JR. Bron, I've never seen this. He said, absolutely not, grabs the clipboard, erases the play, and just said, all right, this is what we're gonna run. You go here, you go here. Hey, I'm a fake. I think it was Dellavedova taking it out. I forgot. And he was like, yo, I'm gonna fake this way. I'm gonna pop to the corner and get me the ball right there. I'm gonna hit the shot. I've never seen somebody.
Let's be honest about something first. The GOAT debate in basketball has been happening for decades, and it's never going away. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kareem, Bill Russell. Every few years, the conversation resurfaces, the arguments restart, and the same names end up at the center of it all. But here's what's different about LeBron's version of the GOAT conversation, and this is the part that Dirk Nowitzki put his finger on directly in 2025. LeBron has never just let the game make the argument for him. From the moment he entered the league as a teenager, being called the Chosen One, a title placed on him before he had played a single professional minute, LeBron's career has been built around a narrative, a story, a brand. And that brand has always had one destination: greatest of all time. 4 championships, 4 MVPs, the all-time scoring record, a 22-year career at the highest level. On paper, the resume is staggering. There's no honest argument against the numbers. But Dirk's point, and this is where the conversation gets genuinely uncomfortable, is that the GOAT title was never supposed to be a campaign. It was never supposed to be something you lobbied for, something your team managed, something you engineered through documentaries and media control and carefully placed narratives. The greatest players in history didn't chase the title. They played, and the world decided. LeBron James has been running a GOAT campaign since 2010. And in early 2025, Dirk Nowitzki finally said what millions of basketball fans had been thinking for years, but nobody with his credibility had been willing to put into words.
Dirk and Jason Terry and
J.
that
Kidd,
little
Jonathan
J.
Taylor.
Kid, but that little
Beret.
JJ Barrera. Nobody give him credit. JJ Barrera was the one who changed the. We didn't have no answer for him. Okay, Dirk, you know what you gonna do. Let's just UD make his shots tough, make it hard on him. He try to make him not shoot 50%, make him have an off night, but he's still gonna get 20. Jason Terry going right, you can't stop him. Right? We knew all these things. But no one planned for little JJ to come off the bench and do what he did.
Here's where this story gets interesting, because this didn't happen the way these things usually happen. There was no press conference, no sit-down interview, no podcast with a publicist in the room managing every word before it leaves someone's mouth. In early 2025, Dirk Nowitzki is at a private basketball summit. The kind of event where retired legends get together, where cameras are limited, where the people in the room have earned the right to speak without filters. The kind of event where real conversations actually happen, because nobody thinks the world is listening. Dirk starts talking about basketball legacies, about what greatness really means when the lights go off and the cameras pack up and the brand managers go home, about the difference between a resume and a reputation, about the difference between numbers that fill a stat sheet and moments that fill a generation's memory. And then, casually, directly, without a single second of hesitation, Dirk says it. The way LeBron has positioned himself, the way his camp manages the story, the way every move becomes a PR campaign, at some point, someone just has to say it. Stop pretending you're the GOAT. Earn it without the lobbying. Stop campaigning for it and just let the game decide. The room goes quiet. Someone in that room has a phone. And 3 days later, the basketball world is never having the same conversation again. There are maybe 5 people on the planet whose opinion on LeBron James's GOAT credentials carries genuine weight, and Dirk Nowitzki is one of them. Not because of what he said, because of what he did. Let's go back to 2011. LeBron James had just assembled what many people were calling the most dominant roster in modern basketball. 3 All-Stars, youth, athleticism, star power. Analysts weren't even calling it a competition. They were openly discussing dynasty before a single game had been played. The basketball world had essentially written LeBron's coronation speech in advance. Then, Dirk Nowitzki walked onto that floor. Game after game, Dirk delivered. Not just decent performances, historic ones. Clutch shots in the fourth quarter when the pressure was at its absolute maximum. A one-legged mid-range fadeaway that became one of the most replayed shots in finals history. Overtime heroics, a leadership presence so calm and so certain that his teammates visibly fed off it. And here's the detail that never gets old. Dirk played that entire series with a torn tendon in his shooting finger. Torn, and said nothing publicly about it until after the championship was won. Meanwhile, on the other side, LeBron James was somewhere else. His numbers looked passable on the surface, but anyone watching with honest eyes saw something deeply troubling. He was passive. He deferred in moments when he should have demanded the ball. His fourth-quarter point totals told a story his assist numbers tried to hide. Game after game, when the stage was the biggest it had ever been, LeBron was quietly, visibly absent in the moments that defined the series. His team lost, 4-2. And then came the press conference. And instead of standing in accountability, instead of showing the humility that a finals loss to a hungrier team demands, LeBron sat in front of the cameras and talked about how his critics would still have to wake up and face their ordinary lives while he went home to his. Tone-deaf, arrogant in defeat, and unforgettable in the worst possible way. That moment has lived inside every LeBron GOAT debate since 2011. So when Dirk Nowitzki, the man who was there, who delivered the defeat, who played broken while LeBron went missing, stands up in 2025 and says, "Stop pretending you're the GOAT," that's not a hot take. That's first-hand testimony from the only courtroom that matters.
The clip spreads exactly the way things spread in 2025. Not through an official channel, not through a press release, just quietly through phones and DMs, until suddenly it's everywhere at once and there's no putting it back. Within hours, basketball social media breaks completely in half. One side, and it is massive, has been waiting for exactly this moment. Comments flood in from every direction. Finally, someone with an actual ring said it. He played through a torn finger while LeBron was hiding on the wing. Dirk didn't write a book about being great, he just was. Old footage gets dug up immediately. The 2011 finals, fourth quarters, side-by-side point totals, clips of Dirk's iconic moments cut next to LeBron's passive stretches. The internet has a long memory and zero mercy. The other side, LeBron's fan base, which is enormous, organized, and fiercely loyal, fires back just as hard. They pull out the scoring record. They point to longevity. They talk about 4 rings across 4 completely different situations. They make the argument that no player in history has sustained elite performance at LeBron's level for as long as he has. And honestly, both sides have real points. This is a real debate. But the conversation has already left the rational framework behind. It's tribal now, it's emotional, it's personal, and it's everywhere. Sports channels scrambling to book guests, former players suddenly being asked to go on record, podcasts dedicating full episodes to replaying a clip that was never supposed to leave a private room. And the one person the entire world is watching, the one person whose response everybody is waiting for, is completely silent.
For 3 full days after the clip surfaces, LeBron James says nothing. No post, no story, no statement from his camp, no carefully worded non-response, nothing. And that silence, from one of the most media-intelligent athletes who has ever lived, speaks louder than anything he could have posted. Because LeBron responds to things. That's what he does. He has an entire operation built around narrative control. He moves quickly, strategically, always on his own terms. He always has a play ready. So 3 days of silence is not an oversight. It is a decision. And the reason it's a decision is obvious to anyone paying attention. There is no clean move here. If he responds defensively, Dirk got to him. If he dismisses it, it looks like he's avoiding the substance. If he engages directly, he keeps the story alive and hands it more oxygen. Every path has a cost. Finally, on day 4, LeBron posts a workout video. No direct reference to Dirk, no statement, just a simple caption, "Still working. The work doesn't lie." Clean, controlled, strategic. Half the comments call it a classy, unbothered response. The other half call it exactly what it is, an avoidance of the real question, because the real question doesn't have a comfortable answer. And then the former players start coming out of the woodwork. Across podcasts and media appearances in early 2025, multiple Hall of Famers begin sharing opinions they've apparently been sitting on for years. Most don't go as far as Dirk did publicly, but the underlying sentiment is strikingly consistent, that LeBron's legacy has always been more actively managed than naturally earned. That the GOAT title in LeBron's world has always felt like something lobbied for rather than simply arrived at through undeniable performance. One former player, speaking anonymously on a widely followed basketball podcast, says something that goes viral on its own within hours. The difference between Michael and LeBron is that Michael never once asked to be called the greatest. He just played. The game made the argument. LeBron has been running a campaign since 2010. That doesn't disqualify him, but it does invite the scrutiny. That quote gets screenshotted and reposted thousands of times before the day is over. Dirk Nowitzki didn't invent this feeling. He just said it louder than anyone else was willing to, and with more credibility than anyone else could claim.
Let's slow down for a second, because the internet, in its rush to pick a side, has been missing the actual substance of what Dirk is saying. He is not calling LeBron a bad basketball player. That would be genuinely absurd. LeBron is one of the most physically gifted, statistically dominant players the sport has ever seen. That is not the argument. What Dirk is pointing at is something more specific and more uncomfortable. He's drawing a hard line between greatness and branding, and he's saying that LeBron James has spent so much energy turning his basketball legacy into a brand campaign that the two have become almost impossible to separate. Think about the full picture. production company, movie appearances, autobiographical documentaries, a media empire built specifically around his own image, a team of people whose entire professional function is to make sure the LeBron narrative always points upward. None of that is accidental. None of that is spontaneous. And Dirk's point, quietly echoed by other people who've been inside those rooms, is that when you build your legacy that deliberately, you open the door to the exact scrutiny he's applying. You invite people to look at the moments where the brand and the performance didn't match. The finals losses, the passive fourth quarters, the quiet disappearances when the stage demanded the most. The real GOAT conversation, the honest one, lives on the floor, in the moments that can't be packaged or spun, in the fourth quarters that happened in front of millions of witnesses with no narrative control available. And in those moments, Dirk Nowitzki, playing through a broken finger on a team nobody believed in, delivered something that LeBron James, for all his brilliance, could not. That's not a brand. That's basketball. And in 2025, because of 5 words in a room that was never supposed to go public, the basketball world is finally being forced to hold both of those things in the same hand at the same time. LeBron's numbers are real. His accomplishments are real. His longevity is genuinely staggering. But so is 2011. And so is the pattern it represents. And so is the fact that the man who exposed that pattern in the most public way possible just walked back into the conversation. Not to chase attention, not to sell something, not to manage a narrative, but simply to say what he believes is true. Dirk Nowitzki has nothing left to prove. LeBron James, according to Dirk, still does. So here's where we land in 2025, and I think it's worth saying this plainly. Dirk Nowitzki didn't destroy LeBron James, the basketball player. The basketball player's fine. The basketball player will go down as one of the greatest who ever lived, full stop. What Dirk did was destroy the campaign. He cut through the brand, the management, the engineered narrative, and forced everyone to ask a question that LeBron's team has spent 15 years trying to make disappear. Does the GOAT title belong to the player with the best numbers, or does it belong to the player who showed up the most completely in the most impossible moments without an excuse and without a fallback story? Because if it's the second one, Dirk Nowitzki in that 2011 finals on one working hand proved something that no stat line can manufacture, and he just reminded the entire world of it. So here's the question I'm leaving you with, and I want a real answer in the comments. If the man who beat LeBron on the biggest stage says, "Stop pretending you're the GOAT," does LeBron still hold that title in your eyes? Or did he earn it in spite of 2011, or because of everything that came after? Drop it below, because this conversation is just getting started, and I want to know exactly where you stand. And if this video gave you something to think about, if it went deeper than the surface-level takes you're used to seeing, then you already know what to do. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because we don't do basic takes here. The real stories, the real conversations, the ones the mainstream won't touch, that's what this channel is built for. We'll see you in the next one.